The world thought they'd seen every side of Lee Min-ho, the charismatic actor, the global heartthrob, the poised public figure. But no one was prepared for the Lee Min-ho who stood in front of Kim Go-eun that evening, with trembling hands, eyes full of emotion, and a vow that silenced the room. Before we reveal the words that left everyone in tears, don't forget to subscribe for more breathtaking celebrity stories like this one. Because what Lee Min-ho said on that wedding night wasn't just a vow. It was a confession 10 years in the making. The wedding was held at a private estate just outside of Jeju Island. Far from paparazzi, far from the noise. Only family, only closest friends. And one or two cameras quietly recording, not for the world, but for their memories. The aisle was lined with white hydrangeas. The sun had just begun to set, casting a golden glow over the garden. And there, standing at the altar, was Lee Min-ho, dressed in a classic ivory suit. His posture was calm, but his eyes, they searched for her like the world disappeared the moment she stepped out. Kim Go-eun appeared slowly, her veil fluttering like a whisper in the ocean breeze. She wore no tiara, no diamonds, just a simple silk gown that hugged her softly, and a bouquet of wildflowers she'd picked herself. When she reached him, he took a breath. Everyone expected the officiant to begin, but Min-ho gently raised his hand, asking to speak first. Go-eun looked up, surprised, and then he began. Not loud, not rehearsed, just a man speaking to the woman who changed his life. I've memorized 1,000 scripts, he said, but none of them ever gave me the words to say this. The audience leaned in. His voice cracked just slightly as he continued. Before you, I thought love had to be dramatic, loud, filled with grand gestures and headlines. But you taught me that real love lives in the quiet, in the way you look at me when I don't notice, in the way you hold space for my silence, in the way you whisper, I see you, when the rest of the world only sees what they want. Go-eun's lips trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. And still he spoke. You once told me you were proud of my heart. But Go-eun, it's your heart that saved me. When the cameras turned off, when the crowds disappeared, when I questioned if I was enough, you were there, not with noise, but with presence, with peace, with love. The guests were silent. Even the wind had paused. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a note. Old, wrinkled, familiar. He held it up. This, he said, is the first letter you ever wrote to me. You left it on the dressing table during our last day filming together. I never told anyone I kept it, but I did. Every line, every sentence. I memorized it. Go-eun's hand covered her mouth. She had forgotten that letter even existed. Min-ho unfolded it and read one line aloud. If this is just acting, then why does my heart feel real? The crowd gasped softly. Then he looked at her, eyes locked, unwavering. That was the day I knew that our story wasn't ending. That whatever began on screen was about to begin again in life. Go-eun's tears began to fall, but she wasn't alone. Even veteran actors, seated in the front row, were dabbing their eyes. The moment was raw, not performed, not practiced, just real. And then Lee Min-ho took a small step closer. He didn't kneel, didn't hold her hand. Instead, he bowed his head slightly and said the words that instantly broke the internet when the wedding video was leaked weeks later. I vow to protect the quiet places where your heart rests. I vow to be the silence when the world is too loud. I vow to never stop seeing you, even when the lights go out. It wasn't a speech. It was a promise. A promise that made even the most jaded celebrity bloggers call it the most romantic wedding vow ever spoken. And Go-eun? She stepped forward. She didn't say anything right away. She just placed her hand gently on his cheek and whispered, so soft only he could hear, You already have. The moment was captured on film. That exact clip, only 15 seconds long, surpassed 50 million views in 2 days. Even international stars commented, This is what real love looks like. Their wedding was an event. It was a prayer. He didn't marry a co-star. He married his peace. After the vows, The officiant finally spoke. The rings were exchanged. A kiss that was neither dramatic nor long. Just a soft, forehead-touching kiss that felt like two souls whispering, "We're home." Later that evening, during the private dinner, guests said the couple barely left each other's side. Min-ho pulled out her chair. Go-eun fed him a bite of their shared cake. And when she leaned into his shoulder, he rested his hand on hers as if it had always been there. And maybe it always had. When asked by one of the guests if he'd be posting wedding photos, Min-ho smiled and said, "Some moments don't belong online. They belong in the heart." But a few days later, a single photo appeared on both of their Instagram stories. No tags, no captions, just one picture. Lee Min-ho holding her hand, their wedding bands barely visible, with a small paper heart between their fingers. The paper read, "I see you." And that was it. That was enough. The internet went wild. People reposted it with captions like, "Who needs 10,000 photos when one says it all? This love, this is different." And even weeks later, fans are still talking about the wedding. Not because of the flowers, not because of the designer dress, but because of the words. Words that felt true, that felt earned, that felt like the end of one story, and the beginning of forever. The morning after their wedding, the world outside remained unaware of what had taken place. No press conference, no announcement, no photo dump. But inside a private villa overlooking the cliffs of Jeju, two hearts were resting quietly in the peace they had waited years to find. Kim Go-eun woke first. The sky outside was a soft watercolor of orange and lavender. She turned slightly, and there he was, Lee Min-ho, sleeping. One arm loosely around her waist, the other tucked beneath the pillow. She studied his face, not the one from glossy billboards or drama close-ups, but the one that only she knew, the one lined with years of quiet patience, the one softened by love. Later that morning, he opened his eyes to find her staring at him, and he smiled, groggy but peaceful. "Morning, Mrs. Lee," he whispered, voice rough from sleep. She laughed, burying her face in his chest. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was real, and that's what made it magical. They had breakfast on the balcony. Simple rice porridge and fruit, prepared by a private chef who understood discretion. No photographers. No managers. Just them. At one point, Go-eun pulled out her phone and took a photo. Not for Instagram. Not for fans. Just for herself. Min-ho mid-laugh, hair messy from sleep, eyes crinkled from smiling. She saved it under a new album titled, Our Beginning. What came next was unexpected.